right, before we open the meeting, Tom, do you want to read through the protocol?
Yes, so this is the March 25th City Council business meeting. The city has determined that it is not practical or prudent to conduct an in-person meeting due to the state of emergency and social distancing guidelines. Accordingly, this meeting will be an electronic meeting conducted under Minnesota State Statutes 13D.021, and to the extent practical, the public may attend the meeting by utilizing the published links. So because this is not a normal meeting format, there's some additional protocols we need to follow in order to keep an orderly meeting. First, our host will keep all participants muted until public comment is requested or the public hearing is open. The council will not be muted so that they can freely discuss topics. The host will specifically solicit questions or comments from the public at various points during each item. Please hold your questions and comments until you've been specifically recognized. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand virtually. We'll talk in a minute about that. Staff will individually recognize those wishing to speak. That will be Haley this evening. And we will invite you to speak or unmute your microphone at that time. If you're not being recognized, provide an obvious visual indicator such as raising your hand or waving it at the camera if we've gone through everybody and you still haven't been asked. Your microphone will be remuted after you've spoken. All votes by the council will be by roll call. During the meeting, the council will pull down their masks at the time that they are speaking so that they can be more clearly heard. At our last meeting, we heard that things were a little bit muffled. So how to raise your hand. If you're on a PC, if you go to the bottom ribbon in Zoom, you'll notice that there's a participants button. When you click on that, a panel will show up on the right-hand side and there'll be a raise hand option in there. And I believe there's also one under reactions. You can choose a reaction there. Haley, who's our host this evening, will notice it and then she will work with the mayor to make sure that you are called on. If you're calling, if you're on a tablet, like an iPad, or you're on your phone and you download the Zoom app, if you go over to the More section on the bottom of your screen where the three little dots are, there will be a raise your hand option there as well. Now, if you're on your phone, you can still virtually raise your hand. You just simply need to press *9 on your phone to raise your hand. That will show up on Haley's screen and she'll know that you're wishing to speak, and then she'll make sure that you're getting called on. Now, at the end of the comments has been received from everybody who we can clearly identify as raising your hand. We'll ask if anybody else has to speak and ask them to wave in front of the camera, or if they're on the phone, there'll be a point at which the mayor or Haley will ask them to unmute your phone and just say, hey, I'd like to speak. So we're ready to go, Mr. Mayor.
Appreciate it, Tom. All right, let's call the meeting to order. Let's please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, any changes to the agenda?
A couple, Mr. Mayor. The council did receive a revised agenda earlier this week, removing the action items related to the interchange utility extension project from the agenda. That's an item that would like to be rescheduled for a special meeting, we believe, next week. Another item we'd like to add is a discussion item under administration, under reports, just an update on that same project. I will be looking for some direction from the city council.
Okay. Everyone okay with that?
Motion to approve the agenda as read. Second.
Motion by Berg, second by Kate. Tom, can you call roll, please?
Yes. Councilmember Schenke?
Aye.
Councilmember Novak?
Aye.
Councilmember Timmerman?
Aye.
Councilmember Berg?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor?
Aye. All right, agenda is adopted. We have no presentations, proclamations, or acknowledgements today. So we'll open it up for public comment. Is there anyone, I'll cover this real quick. I know there's probably a number on here that are interested in continuing the public hearing from the last meeting. Anything brought up under public comment is separate from that. It has to be something not currently on the agenda that you'd like to address the council. So with that in mind, is there anybody that cares to speak under public comment tonight?
Mr. Mayor, this is Tom Wolf.
Commissioner?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, Tom Wolf, Commissioner. Just a couple things here. We're giving out shots as fast as we're giving them for the COVID virus. I think at some point here, we're gonna have to switch to where anyone that wants to get them can get them, because we're running out of people that are like in the age brackets, like the medical people, the teachers, the ages. And so we're hoping to just open it up at some point here pretty quick. We're moving into our new building. Many people have started the migration already, so that's going pretty good. And out in Credit River, they have 13 candidates running for the positions, 3 for mayor and 5 for each the 4-year and 5 for the 2-year terms out there. And I'm already starting to see signs going up. So it's going to get pretty contested here. So, and the election is May 11th. So that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Anyone have any questions for Commissioner Wolf?
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Is anyone else on that would care to speak under public comment? Going once, twice. All right, we'll close public comment. Consent agenda. Is there any items on the consent agenda that anyone would like to pull or had a quick question about or anything like that? If not, I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Motion by Kate.
Second.
Second, guessing that was Amanda.
Yep.
All right.
Easier.
Tom, can you call?
Yes, Councilmember Shanky.
Aye.
Councilmember Novak.
Aye.
Councilmember Timmerman.
Aye.
Councilmember Berg.
Aye.
Mayor Julius.
Aye. Consent agenda passes. So we'll move to public hearing. So we're continuing the public hearing on the capital improvement, street reconstruction and capital purchase plan from last week. So before we open it up, I just want to quickly say to those watching, it was a good, I wasn't at the public hearing last time. I did go back and watch it. A lot of great points were made and a lot of people had opportunities to speak. It just for the interest of efficiency, I certainly want everyone that feels the need to speak to have that opportunity tonight. However, I do ask that if you don't, I ask that we don't repeat points that have already been made, just in the interest of efficiency. So, and I don't think we're going to go through in detail the same staff presentation we had last time, just for redundancy purposes. Tom, did you have like an abbreviated version you wanted to go through, or?
I do have an abbreviated version, just out of consideration. The full presentation is on the video from the last council meeting, as well as the minutes from the last council meeting. I'll go through just some of the background, but I'll skip the detail on the majority of the projects. So just quickly, I'll talk about what the capital improvement street reconstruction capital plan is. I'll review the list of projects, but won't go through each of them in detail with the exception of the Woodcrest Windrose Connection Road, because that's where we received the most public interest and comment over the course of the public comment period on this. And then the mayor will reopen the public hearing for public comment. So just quickly, the Capital Improvement Street Reconstruction and Capital Purchase Plan, or the CIP, is a fiscal management tool that's used to basically plan for large finance projects and purchases. So this would be large pieces of equipment or large projects that the city is doing that we're planning to finance or sell debt for. It is a clear declaration of intent. So as part of the plan, you are planning to do it, but it's not a hard commitment to any project or scope. The example I gave at the last meeting is you may be planning to buy a new car in a few years when Johnny's done with school and the fast boat is paid off. But a lot of things happen between then and now, and you're not actually buying that car until you're buying the car. But you do need to plan for it. There's two ways in which city generally finance large purchases and projects. One is pay as you go, where essentially you are saving up money to be able to pay cash for it. That's what they call pay-as-you-go financing. We typically use that for our capital outlay. So these are for durable items or purchases that we can't afford to pay cash for. They're generally items that are under $100,000. although that's not a hard rule. So it's things like smaller pieces of equipment, and smaller repair maintenance projects, et cetera. However, just like in a normal household, there's things that you can't realistically save up for. Buying a new house, for example, most people will need to issue debt for that city the same way. And so that's what we call pay as you use, where you're actually paying the debt service, or paying back the loan, so to speak, on that item as you are actually using it. Another reason for taking this approach, not only it's hard to save up that amount of money, without placing an undue burden on the taxpayers today, is the taxpayers today may not be the ones who benefit from it. So, for example, in some cases, you need to issue debt for a major facility. Well, if it takes you 20 years to save up the money for that new facility, in 20 years, the residents that are here today may not be there when that facility is actually built. So that may be a situation where you want to issue debt, so that those that are benefiting from it are paying for it. That's another reason to use that approach. The things that are included within the CIP are is basically a pay-as-you-use approach. We also, the debt that we issue and all the debt that we talked about in the plan is what's called general obligation. So at the end of the day, regardless if it's being funded by utility revenue or whether it's being funded by assessments or whether it's being funded by general property taxes, at the end of the day, we're underwriting all of that by our general property taxes. We're pledging the full faith and credit, basically the tax base of the city, to make sure that it gets paid back. And that basically makes bidders who buy our debt more comfortable. They'll give us better terms related to the debt that they will buy. That, combined with most of the debt being non-taxable, gives us a better advantage out of the market, let's say through a private entity would have. So the benefit of our taxpayers. I won't go into into a lot of detail, but we issue GEO capital improvement bonds, GEO street reconstruction bonds, equipment certificates, utility revenue bonds, tax abatement bonds. All of these different types of bonds have slightly different rules related to them and slightly different process and how you issue them. But these are all the different types of debt that we plan on utilizing within the current plan that's proposed. As I indicated, I won't go into a lot of detail about each one of these projects. There's a lot of information in the videos previously posted. But we do have a number of projects that are proposed over the 5-year period. They are grouped into projects and purchases in 2021, 2022, and 2023. They're generally grouped based on priority, how soon the council would prefer to have it done, the nature of the projects, so that the type of debt and also bidding the project can be done together to achieve some economies of scale. And also taking a look at trying to balance how much debt to some degree that we're issuing at one time. In 2021, we're looking at issuing debt for the I-35 utility extension project, which would take sewer and water out to the interchange area. Woodcrest Sewerage Force Main Network. This is a project at the Woodcrest neighborhood to provide access to basically sanitary sewer that has been built out pieces. This project would basically build out the remainder of the network, which would give a location for people who have failing septics or who choose to hook up. And then we're also looking to finance purchasing the land adjacent to City Hall. In 2022, this is really an equipment year. We're looking to replace one of our dump plow trucks. We're looking to replace one of our aging pumpers, and we're looking to replace the utility service truck. All of these items are items that generally have a 20-year lifespan, are all going to be at or exceeding that 20-year lifespan in that general time frame. And then in 2023, that's really the street project year. We're looking at a downtown residential street reconstruction project, which would generally include what would be the traditional downtown New Market area south of Main Street. The potential connection between Woodcrest and Monroe Street connection. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then the next phase of our pavement rehabilitation program in 2023. Are there any questions from council on that? Okay. So I will talk a little bit more on the Woodcrest Monroe Street, just because I know we have a lot of people in the audience that have interest in this. And this is really the one project in the plan that we have received public feedback and questions on over the last month as we've been going through the public comment period. So the project that's proposed is essentially a street connection between the Windrose neighborhood and the Woodcrest neighborhood. The estimated project cost is $220,000. The construction of the connection itself is estimated to be $165,000. The city has already paid $55,000 in right away. So that's the estimated outlay. The reality is the net cost for the project will be less. Our intent would be to separate the right of way from the lot that was purchased and sell the remainder of the lot as a buildable lot, which would allow us to recoup dollars back and offset the overall project cost. So the net cost is going to be something less than that. This project would be proposed for 2023 in the current plan, although as things go forward, it's included in the plan. The council can certainly choose to change the date of that as we move forward based on changing circumstances, assumptions, financial condition of the city, etc. The overall intent of the project was to provide an alternative vehicular connection to the Woodcrest neighborhood. I'll talk a little bit more about that. This primarily started as a public works and public safety discussion. There has not been an alternative access into the neighborhood. To be perfectly honest, it's an old neighborhood. There really wasn't an opportunity to do that in the past, and there wasn't a platted alternative access when the project was originally developed. The city was able to acquire a lot in a location that provided the possibility for an additional access. It originally started as a public safety emergency access only, but as we began to find out more about the issue, we found out that there were other issues related to reliable access for residents and reliable access for transit, for like school buses, dial-a-ride, etc., that might impact it. So the overall scope of the project was everything from an emergency access, which is really limited to emergency vehicles, police, fire, ambulance, and public works for maintenance purposes, up to what would be just a local street connection, would be just another local street. The emergency access obviously goes to address the emergency, the public safety concerns. The street access, to a large degree, is about improving potentially the quality of life of the residents. However, as we noted in our past presentations, it's noted that if you make that a regular street access, you are going to have, to some degree, additional traffic, additional maintenance associated with that additional traffic, and there would be an impact on the character of the neighborhood. And as I get into the next slide and talk about the concerns that it expressed, just the character of the neighborhood as well. So with regards to public feedback on the project, the city's community-oriented local government philosophy states that we will incorporate community feedback in making participative, transparent decisions. So this hearing is part of that process. And for some of the debt that we would plan to issue, the capital improvement, street reconstruction, and tax abatement bonds that are contained within the plan, we're required to have a hearing on the plan as part of that process as well. So public comment today. Prior to the very first hearing, the city had received a petition, which included 38 signatures expressing a number of concerns related to the project, and they would all be summarized under a following slide here. We also held a hearing at our last council meeting. The public comment portion of that hearing was an hour and 20 minutes plus, and we heard from 13 different individuals during that hearing. We also received 2 emails as part of that public hearing process, that one of which was included in the council's packet, included in the public packet as well. So that's generally available, and we received another one which I will need to read into the record tonight as part of the public comment. We also received a survey that was conducted by a resident in the project area of residents who lived in proximity to the project. There were 41 respondents. Of those, 39 were opposed to any sort of road connection, emergency, or local street access. And there were 2 that supported the emergency access. That was also provided to the council and also included in the public packet for tonight. So in general, there was a number of concerns. I'll be honest, after everything that we've received, after an hour and 20 minutes of testimony, and I can't reasonably or practically go through every comment that was received, but I think they can be generalized into these areas. And if somebody would like to see or hear more, we do have the minutes from that meeting, as well as the video, and you will be able to go back and get more detail. Generally, the overall concerns can probably be broken down in these 5 areas. One is just the need for the project. There's questions and concerns about, is the project really needed? Is there really a public safety concern to justify a project? You know, individuals who've lived in the neighborhood for a long time or referencing history of the neighborhood have indicated that they don't see what the past has taught them justifying the project. There's the cost benefit value. So regardless of how you feel about the benefit of the project, there's the question of, do the public safety benefits justify the cost for the project and or the impact to the neighborhood in the case of the local street connection? Other comments related to traffic impact, that the increased traffic volume from cut-through traffic would result in impacts to the character of the neighborhood, increased road maintenance, safety to neighborhood pedestrians, and related impacts to the quality of life for the residents in that neighborhood. Questions and concerns related to the environmental impact, the impact of the wetland in the corridor of the project, and then drainage, potential for negative impacts to drainage in the immediate vicinity of the project due to either impacts or encroachment on the existing stormwater facility that would have to be bisected or the wetland in that particular area. So at this point, the council, I think, has 4 options related to this project within this related to the CIP. And again, tonight, the council is not approving a project. They're approving whether or not a project would be included within a financial planning document. But again, it's a statement of intent. And so how it's described, whether it's included or not, and how it's described in that document are important. So the options that the council has tonight is 1, they could approve the document describing the project as a local street connection. The council could decide that it would be emergency access only, as previously described. It would be for police, fire, ambulance, public works. The third option is to remove it from the 2021 capital improvement plan, but preserve the right of way so that if at some point in the future the need becomes more apparent, it's more affordable, and or it's desired by the neighborhood or mandated by circumstances, the council will at least have the option at some point in the future to do the project. But if it's removed from the 2026, it would be a statement that it's not planned to be done in at least the next 5 years. And then the last one is to remove it from the plan and do not preserve the right of way, essentially move forward with selling the property, remove it from the plan, and the option for that project simply goes away. So what we need from the council tonight is direction on the capital projects and purchases in the plan, not just the Woodcrest and Rose Connection, but the other projects as well, regarding the scope and timing, and direct any changes that they'd like to see to the draft for adoption. So we'd be amending it or adopting it conditional upon those changes. And the council is being asked to adopt resolution 2113, which approves the capital improvement and street reconstruction capital purchase plan. So that's all I have for presentation tonight. Are there any questions for staff? Yes, I'll also note that we have our department heads here tonight. We have our chief of police, we have our emergency management director, we have our public works director, and we also have Terry Heath from Baker Tilly, who's our firm we use for issuing debt, and she can answer some of the more technical questions related to the debt issuance process.
Does anyone have any questions before we start the public hearing?
We have to read the letter.
Oh, yes, Mr. Mayor. Just a reminder, once we go into the public meeting, there is that one email which was not included in the packet that would need to be read into the record. Would you like to do that at the beginning of the meeting?
Yeah, let's open the public hearing and let's start with that.
Okay.
So the city is open at 6:25. Go ahead, Tom.
Yep. So the city received an email from Timothy Sadusky. I don't have an address in the email. We will look it up for the record. It says, Mayor and council members, I appreciate your willingness to be open to feedback. Here's the contributing factor for some or many of the households of Woodcrest. The fears that we may lose what we love the most of the hill. I share that Connie and I looked at numerous homes when we moved in 2002. We got to Woodcrest and it all fell into place. It is the location and feel that we want to have. That is also why we have never sold. We envision having our grandchildren play at our house. We still have fear of an SSTS installation that is changing the cost and function of when we moved in. Please take a moment and strip away a few of the negative comments regarding adding a road for safety reasons. Connie and I feel that anyone who says two accesses are not safer are arguing for no reason. It is obviously a safer option every time. The fear of our sacred Woodcrest changing is, in our opinion, why neighbors are using other words to say we just don't feel like the access brings a large enough benefit. Have people walked up the hill? Yes. Has it been slippery? Yes. Has it been inconvenient at times? Yes. Does that equate to needing a solution? Not in my opinion. Most of us still have fear of the SSTS installation costs that will change our homes and budgets. Change makes our tummies bad. After attempting to gather as much information as possible to be calm and viewed from multiple angles, I asked the City Council and Mayor to opt for one of the following options. Remove from the 2021-2025 Capital Improvement Street Reconstruction Plan. I keep the land bill. 2, keep in the plan, meant to be a controlled access, dirt road only used as emergency when frozen, right? Overwhelmingly bring to mind the look and feel of Woodcrest. I can't represent the collective of us all. However, I do feel the majority of us want this to be a throwback in time. We like our mature trees, dirt road, water issues, slippery hill, low traffic volume, secure feeling, and little neighborhood. Change is scary. Please don't change it. Connie and I can't make the math work. The guaranteed cost of installation is too high for the possible use. Elko Market can utilize these funds elsewhere for a larger benefit to the community. As a business owner and resident, the numbers just don't add up, providing residents on Woodcrest or Elko Market a good value for those dollars. Progress has made in securing the option. Owning the land was a very good move. I support owning the land option. The city of Elko Market did not miss out on the opportunity. You now hold the ace. Please remove Woodcrest from the capital improvement plan for this project. Oh, one last comment, road or no road, I am on a cul-de-sac that would have about 5 cars a year at increased traffic. It literally doesn't change my life. My neighbors' opinions and feelings, however, that can have an impact on our standard of living. Tim and Connie Sedesky.
Thanks, Tom. All right. So if there are any on this call that would care to speak, could you please raise your hand on the Zoom call, either ideally, as Tom had explained how to do it earlier, but just wave at the camera if you have something you wanted to say. One of us will see you. Oops. Is there anybody that wants to speak tonight?
Mr. Mayor, I do see a hand raised. Darren's iPad. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, state your name and address for the record, and then you can address the city council.
All right, thank you. So my name is Darren Panett. I live at 10190 Ponds Way in Windrose. I have been pretty outspoken in my opinion. I don't feel that for all the discussion we had, there's been any ultimate need or use for this road. It's very unclear who's even requesting it. We spent a lot of time listening to 2 public officials repeatedly tell us they were concerned about the safety of residents walking up the hill. And then at the end of the meeting, both of those officials stated they wanted it to be an emergency access only. That was a giant waste of time, but I find it disingenuous to tell everyone you're concerned about their safety, and at the end of the day, say that's not really what I'm trying to accomplish. But that aside, we heard about trees blocking the road in the event there was a tornado. I can tell you if there's 10 trees blocking Woodcrest in the event of a tornado, there's going to be 20 as it's a wetland area. And at the top of a hill, the trees are going to come down at a way higher rate. And I don't know how long it could take to remove 10 trees. I and a friend with a couple of vehicles and chainsaws could probably remove 10 trees in 3 hours tops. But at any rate, my concern is a little bit selfish, but also I look at the people in Woodcrest. I walked around, I'm the one that did the survey. They love their neighborhood. I walked around, everybody waved at everybody. There were very few cars, there were kids all over the place. I can't imagine how much that would change. And whether this is an emergency access only or a full-blown road, eventually it's going to turn into a full-blown road, because when that emergency access isn't used and the taxpayers see that and they see the maintenance and the upkeep, they're going to want to use the road just to make it useful. And eventually that's going to happen. We all know if it's an emergency access, it's not going to last that way. I don't think very many people can honestly believe that. So I just talked to the residents as I walked around. They told me 6 years ago, and these figures may not be exact, there were $57,000 assessments everyone was facing for city sewer, water, and pavement. By the time that would happen, which will happen if the road goes through, it'll probably be at least $70,000 a person. Now, to put that into the grand picture, that's about $3 million of assessments to a neighborhood where I didn't find a single person who wants this road. I don't, it makes no sense to me on any level. And I also find filling in a wetland area because the DNR allows you to buy credits, that's the equivalent of a sin tax to me. Okay, we can go to the liquor store or the convenience store and buy cigarettes or liquor. That's an individual decision. For the city to be paying the equivalent of a sin tax to do something that basically you're not supposed to do, and you understand you're not supposed to do it, but you have a way around it, I think is a very poor look, and I think it's very concerning as well. But I'll try to keep this brief. Monday morning, I was eating breakfast with my kids at the table. We had a set of wood ducks, a set of mallards, and a set of buffleheads land on the pond while we sat there and ate breakfast. That will be lost if that gets filled in. You're losing another area that holds a ton of wildlife, especially since the Pete's Hill addition's been constructed. The number of deer and other animals we see has grown exponentially as all the construction out by 86 and everywhere else has gone on. So I would really personally love it if this was pulled out before the vote even happened, because I think there's a lot of concern that if the vote happens with this still in there, it just gives it a way to happen that much quicker. If people are opposed, I think we would all appreciate, almost everyone on this call would appreciate if it was pulled out prior to the vote. And then I just want to say, I kind of thought of this as a road to nowhere was kind of my term for it. And so I looked up the definition, and the definition of a road to nowhere is a plan, project, development, or course of action that appears to have no meaningful, desirable, or useful conclusion. I think that's a pretty accurate description. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Darren. Is there anyone else interested in commenting and speaking tonight?
Exactly what he said. That's what we feel.
I'm sorry? Christy, I saw you have your hand raised.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much for letting me speak tonight. I hope you can all hear me okay. I would just like to say that my name is Christy and I'm elect.
Mr. Mayor, if you can have those that are speaking give their full name and address for the record.
Yeah. Christy, for the record, could you give your full name and address, please?
Yeah, Christy Maplevec at 26626 Woodcrest Lane. I'm in the cul-de-sac at the very top of the Woodcrest Circle when you first come into the development. I just want to say that I wholeheartedly agree with Darren's assessment of this project. I feel it's very unnecessary. We love our neighborhood. We moved here 9 years ago from West St. Paul, and this neighborhood is exactly what we were looking for. Unfortunately, as well, I want to keep our neighborhood the way that it is. It's quiet, it's peaceful, everybody is cooperative and wonderful neighbors. However, if we're assessed the kind of fees that we're going to be assessed, given the improvements that we would need to make to the road, to the city sewer, to the city water, etc., I would have to say that unfortunately, we're going to have to leave the neighborhood. We won't be able to afford those kinds of assessments to our home. Our budget is not meant for that. So I thank you for giving me an opportunity to let you know about this. I do hope the city council decides to shelve this idea. I don't think that it's for the greater good. Thank you.
Thanks, Christy. Is there anyone else that would like to speak tonight?
Mr. Mayor, it looks like there is another hand raised. The name listed was just C.
Okay, feel free if you can state your name and address for the record, please.
I think they were just clapping for Darren's.
Okay.
Oh, that could be. All right. And is there, I guess we'll make this last call if there's anyone else that cares to speak. Otherwise, we'll close the public hearing afterwards. Dakota?
John Beck, 26605 Woodcrest Circle. I do agree with what Darren and Christy have said. This is absolutely unnecessary in our point of view. The assessments would be ridiculous. As Christy said, all of us would probably end up moving, to be honest. Our kids, their safety is a #1 concern with the additional traffic. The hill, our kids walk down the hill to get to their bus stop. The additional traffic there, you add a little bit of snow on that, it's going to be dangerous. Our kids are used to being able to just run around and play. And you add in additional sidewalks, great. You're taking away from our properties, the look of everything. I would honestly, you add in a good 5 to 10 feet, you're making my driveway absolutely insane at that point. You think the hill's bad, go up on my driveway. It's just not, I really hope the council decides just to curb this. We don't need it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dakota. Is it Javelin? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, you got that right.
How you doing?
From the last meeting, I had a little bit of time to think after everything was said and done.
I need to cut you off for a second.
Oh, sorry. My name is Javelin Jobsis. I live at 26716 Woodcrest Court. After having a little bit of time to talk and comprehending everything that went down at the last public hearing, the main point of this road is for safety, is what they're saying, to get emergency vehicles up there. But both our public works and our police chief both said that they have no issue getting up there, that it's other people that have been stuck at the bottom, not them or their squad cars or works. So I just want to make sure people know it's not a problem for our emergency team. It's a problem for drivers that maybe not have enough experience to get up the hill. So that's just what I wanted to say. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Darren, I know your hand is up. And before we go back to you, because I know you just spoke, I just want to see, is there anybody else that hasn't had an opportunity to speak that would like to? Not seeing any hands go up. Darren?
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I forgot one thing. So Darren Panett, 10190 Ponds Way. If getting water to the other side is an issue, which I think is the one potential legitimate concern that came out of the entire last meeting, you guys now own the land and you have water access and windrows. It would cost 1/20th as much to pipe water over through the land that you now own and put a fire hydrant over there as to put in an entire road. And that literally is the only useful benefit that I can see from this. So that's all I had to say. It's an idea that could save a lot of money and still serve the public safety issue. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. All right, we'll make this last call. Anyone with any last comments they'd like to make? Okay. In that case, let's close the public hearing.
The public hearing is closed at 6:32 p.m. 42 p.m.
All right, so council. Let me start by this. Is there anybody that, okay, the Woodcrest Road or secondary access aside, is there anything else in the CIP that anybody else has any issues, concerns, wants to pull? Okay. And I'm of that same opinion. So then we can just focus right on the Woodcrest second access. I'll save my comments to the end. Is there, or unless no one wants to talk, but let's open this up. Let's have a discussion. City Council, what do you guys think?
Well, I guess everybody's looking at me. So I'll go first. My initial thought, first of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody who took the time to be very passionate about their neighborhood and be very detailed about the different things that they felt were unnecessary with the project. And know that I can't speak for the whole city council, but I can say for myself that, I probably could say this for everyone. We're here to support you as residents. We want your voice to be heard. That voice has been heard during all of this. It's of my opinion that we go with the option that removes it from the plan and preserve the right of way. You just never know. It could be 30 years from now where residents in that neighborhood, maybe it's a change of residents over a period of time, and there's a need later on down the road. I think me not being on the council at the time this property was purchased, I think it was a good step in the right direction to be proactive and getting a property that was available for a concern that was brought up by city staff. And now we're at a road where we need to make a decision if we're going to utilize that and move forward with the project. And I think maintaining the right of way is the right thing to do, but taking it off of the list itself.
Thanks, Bryce. Who wants to go next?
Well, I guess I will follow, just kind of go around the horn. I agree with everything that Bryce has said. I truly appreciate the community coming out and doing what they can to be part of this discussion and letting us know their thoughts. I also agree that it should be removed from the CIP except for preserving our rights to the right of way. As Bryce said, you never know what's going to happen in 5 to 7 to 8 to 10, 15 years from now. There could be a strong need for it. So I still don't want to take that option away from us if we need to do it in the future. But once again, you guys, thank you, all of you, for coming and doing your due diligence and keeping us informed of what your thoughts are.
All right, who wants to go next?
I can go next. Appreciate the passion and the info. These kind of discussions are always fun, and hopefully everybody can feel like they participated, had their voice heard. I guess I have a couple of questions maybe that I can throw out to some staff, mixed in with some of my comments. I do want to reiterate that it isn't a unanimous opinion of the neighbors up there that all folks don't want the emergency access. I spoke to a few of them directly, those that do see it as reasonable and necessary for emergency purposes. And I guess I don't want to overlook that. And I just wonder, while there's a majority of folks that absolutely have voiced their concerns and don't want this to be included, just that we don't lose sight of those that live up there that currently do feel like things are unsafe, and that there are issues that could potentially come up now, not 5 years from now, 10 years from now, but they're concerned about their family if something were to happen. And I think, I guess before I get into some of my questions, I think that's one of the responsibilities we have as a city council, to look out for the future. I went as far as looking into statute of what, what we're supposed to be doing. One of the duties that we have is to protect the welfare of the city and its inhabitants, and the general welfare, which includes directly out of Minnesota statute, the protection of public and private property, the promotion of health and order, and doing so through looking long-term and short-term at the needs, and being able to weigh some of these health and safety concerns. And I appreciate that whatever the number is, 47, 48 years, nothing has happened. I certainly don't want that on me of it happened tomorrow or next year or 2 years from now and we could have done something. Maybe it's not meeting the definition of negligence or anything like that, but I feel like it's an issue that we know about, that we could potentially prevent, whether it's a house burning down, officers not being able to get up there because of a domestic abuse sort of situation, and you name the what if, and I appreciate the fact that we can't make all of our decisions on what might happen, but now that it's been called out and now that we have an option to do something, not do the full road or anything like that, but do the emergency, I think it's just as foolish, if not more irresponsible for us not to do something. And so, I would absolutely like to keep it in the CIP, option number 3, to continue to evaluate it, knowing that this isn't making any decision whatsoever of the actual approving of the road, and it could still, change or be removed in the future. But like I said, I think it's our responsibility to look out for everybody, and those that are in the minority that have expressed their concern or would like to see this in place. And it would be a hypothetical or a complete bet or a guess that I'm sure there are others that maybe would be open to an emergency access, but perhaps due to pressure and or not wanting to ruffle feathers or be that neighbor, maybe are going more with the group thinks type of thing. All right, off the soapbox, couple of questions. So assessments have been brought up several times. If this was
Josh, can I interrupt you for a second and ask you a question? Absolutely. I just want to be clear. So are you saying you are for it being included in the CIP, or are you for it being pulled from the CIP?
But sorry, my apologies. Yeah, no, I would like to see it still in the CIP. So number 2, so the emergency access version. Sorry, I said number.
Thank you.
Yep. I minimized my screen here so I can see more faces. So now, but the assessments have been brought up. If it's an emergency road, are there going to be improvements needed that residents are going to be assessed for? And I guess we're not even to this point yet either. So
no. So if it's an emergency access, there would be no assessments. But even if it was just a local street connection, there wouldn't necessarily be assessments either. I do suspect that those that are talking about assessments are taking it another leap, that they're assuming that if the connection is made, that they're assuming there would be improvements to the whole road system up there, and then that those improvements would require assessments. So that's speculation on their part. It's within the realm of possibilities, to be perfectly honest. The city engineer spoke, detail, indicated he wasn't in support of the full local road access because it would increase traffic. It would probably drive increased maintenance, which may lead to discussions about improvements to the road system up there. Whether or not there's assessments associated with that, who's really benefiting and whatnot, those would be policy decisions if that were to occur. But with regards to the specific project that we're talking about this evening, there are no assessments associated with it.
Okay. can it be reasonably assumed that if we wait to do the road, whether it's even in next year or the year after, but 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, would it be reasonable to assume that the cost is only going to go up?
That is a reasonable assumption. Sometimes costs will remain flat. They rarely go down, especially with construction and especially with increases in cost of labor and materials that we've seen just over the last several years. The cost will undoubtedly be more expensive in the future than it would be today.
So just noting that if there were a change in desire of the neighborhood and we wanted to do it 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, costs could be higher. There was a few posts on social media, and I don't mean to call Renee or Bryce out, but you guys are smarter than I am when it comes to property values and real estate stuff. In your opinion, and feel free not to give it if you don't want to, would this have a significant, would an emergency access road have a significant impact on people's property values up or down? Well, long and short of it is that when an appraisal is done, no, that wouldn't be a factor. However, there is certain aspects of property that are more desirable to people than others, which makes the market value higher. So if a road went through a particular area that has no connection, has a very nice yard, that particular property could face a decrease in market value. It might not be as desirable. Would it affect the entire neighborhood? Not necessarily. That's doubtful. But the few properties that are right next to it that are joined where the road is could face some market value decrease. There. Thank you. And kind of assuming that was going to be the answer. You know, in talking to some of the residents up there directly, you know, they've made comments and whether it is people staying at their house short term or friends and family, could it also, and maybe it's not a property value increase or decrease, but I know that there were comments made of, whoa, we would never live up there, knowing that there's the potential that fire trucks or ambulances or school buses couldn't get up there. So could it, I'm not gonna ask you to hypothesize or speculate. Thank you. I'm going to, I'll do it for myself. I mean, so there could also be the flip side of that, in my opinion, and based on talking to some of the folks, that it could bring more people to want to live up there if there was an emergency access or just that, knowing that that was there. So I think there's two sides to some of that. And we've heard a lot about the traffic, and which is why I think we can all wholeheartedly say that we want to propose a full city local street type of connection. Absolutely appreciating the fear or the thoughts or the even reasonable assumption that it would speed up the local connection at some point in the future. But I think just reiterating again that my intent for the emergency road would to really mitigate or diminish the traffic, because that's not what it would be used for. Tom, maybe you could answer this, or maybe it's for Rich directly, just to clarify some additional comments that were made. Did our engineering company contractor propose this at all, and did they propose this project?
Absolutely not. This originally started with an inquiry from Public Works, and Public Safety was engaged for the public safety discussion. This was staff driven. It was a staff recommendation that came out of our public safety departments, which includes Public Works. The city engineer was engaged to do their job, which was to look at, is it possible, is it feasible? What would it look like? And coming up with cost estimates as part of the project. And then as we got into it, things associated with what might happen with traffic, could we be looking at additional maintenance, getting a look at from the city engineer standpoint. So the city engineer was utilized for what we retain their services for. But no, this was not This was not a shopping expedition on the part of the city engineer's office.
Cool. And last, and then I'll be quiet for now anyway. You know, looking at some of the best practices and doing some due diligence, and maybe Brady, or I know Todd's not on, but you know, I think it's obvious, but it's also I wouldn't say fact, but it's based on studies and whatnot, that the quicker that emergency vehicles, whether it's police, fire, ambulance, can respond, the better the outcome for those that need those emergency services. And I mean, there's studies that are shown that are really encouraging local governments, county and city, to develop streets and roadways to minimize that response time, and really getting it to, you know, under 5-minute response time, under 9 minutes for life support type of responses. And while I definitely heard, and I can't remember who made the comment, you know, Corey and Brady, and maybe even comments from the fire chief, you know, they can get up, and they haven't had issues wholeheartedly being stuck. But if they're having to take 2, 3, 4 runs at it, and it increases the amount of time to get up that hill, that could be a matter of life and death, and multiple houses burning down, or just more bad things happening. So, I mean, I guess, Brady, do you have any comments on response time and what a secondary access could do to help some of that?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, council. I think the simplest thing to look at is, I'm not a city designer, I'm not a city planner. We have those, but if you look at all our other neighborhoods, including Windrose, there's more than one way into the neighborhood. They don't design neighborhoods anymore with one way in and one way out. Now, some will argue Pete's Hill only has one way in and one way out. That is true, but the whole area developed, once developed, has multiple ways into the neighborhood. So when Woodcrest was developed, it was very rural, and they did it with one way in and one way out. Anytime you have a neighborhood with that many homes, you would like more than one way in and one way out, for numerous reasons. Storms, slippery hills. So the second access emergency only is for not just the slippery conditions. It's for many other reasons. It could be tactical. You could have somebody hold up with a rifle on one end of the apartment, and you have no way into one end of the neighborhood, and you don't have another way in. It could be weather, it could be storms, it could be trees down, it could be fires. We just always like to see more than one way into a neighborhood. And so, yes, response time, if a truck did get stuck, or say there was an inexperienced driver that got stuck and their car's sitting across the middle of the road. When you slow down emergency response, it can have a negative impact. I'm not about scaring or scare tactics and the whole neighborhood's in danger if we don't have this, but is it desirable? Of course, yes. And anybody who says that slower response time is just fine when someone's having a heart attack or someone's bleeding from a chainsaw cut or what have you, no, you want to get there as quick as you can. So does the hill slow down? Does the bad icy weather slow down response time? Yes. Public safety, we don't like to see that. So I think you'd get everybody who would agree with that.
All right, and then I got one more comment, actually two. So for our COG, community-oriented government philosophy too, I mean, one of the things that we strive to do, and folks can check this out on the website, but and we check the boxes on many of these during this discussion. Community involvement, we've incorporated community feedback, making participative, transparent, or making participative, transparent decisions. You know, I think we're looking at ways to improve efficiencies to deliver the services of our city. And I think 3 really kind of stands out to me too, with our problem solving and really looking at doing so by considering the long-term costs and benefits in policy decisions, and not just the short term, not just the current feelings, perceptions, whatever, but really looking at the long term, and doing so in a proactive way, and by examining the identified issues. I mean, this is an issue. I think we'd be, and I said it before, I'll say it again, we'd be foolish and irresponsible not to continue to look at it. And from another study, and I'll read this and then I will be quiet. Despite increasing vulnerability to insert whatever you want, natural disasters, emergencies, many communities resist adopting mitigation programs. The barriers are economic, social, and political, and mitigation is often perceived as restrictive, costly, and incompatible with the community's economic development goals. Mitigation may involve solutions that are technically sound but politically unpopular. In this context, elected officials are often reluctant to pursue mitigation programs vigorously. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now. And I want to look at this further. And I think, again, it's not fully committed to anything, but really doing justice by the issue and really listening to some of the other voices up there that would like us to continue to look at it. Okay, thank you.
Lori,
Josh, you sure you don't have more?
If you want me to, I can continue, but I can show.
Amanda, I think you're next. Did you have any?
Corey has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Corey, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. It was Public Works and Public Works wholeheartedly that brought this up. I look at our job is when people call and have issues, we try to respond and problem solve, whether it be a water issue, a sewer issue, a storm issue, a street issue. So we got calls about people not being able to make it up the hill. That's where this started. We were providing a solution. So like I said, we don't have an issue making it up when we're here. Our concern was when we were not here. That's where this started, and that's where, that's where we were looking at emergency access. If we never got calls on it, probably never would have brought it up. But because we got calls, that's where this started.
Amanda.
All right. I don't know that I have a lot more to add, other than what has been said. I will say, to Josh's point, I do have some concerns that there are residents near the project area that maybe aren't comfortable speaking up due to the majority being opposed to this particular project. But I also can acknowledge the culture of the Woodcrest neighborhood. I went for a little drive today to check out where the road would be, and then I went out with the Woodcrest neighborhood, and you can see the culture. I will say that something that stuck with me after last week's hearing, that I don't know, I guess it rubbed me the wrong way, to be very frank, in that, if this, and I think it's clear that a local street connection is kind of off the table at this point, but when it was said that if we were to do this, that the first child that gets run over is going to be on us. I don't think that was appropriate or fair to say. And it's bugged me since the last meeting, because I feel like, is that going to be the same thing if we don't have emergency access and something happens? Is that going to be on us as well? So it's kind of I don't know, an argument to be made either way, or just a poor argument, I guess, because I don't want anyone to ever be put in that situation. I don't want people I just don't want to ever have to go there. Given the large number of people that have participated and really gone out there and got the community involved, I think it's been great. For this particular project, I am with Bryce and Kate with option number 3. Removing it from this plan and preserving that right of way. I have one question about the suggestion of the fire hydrant, and given that we are doing some work up there related to water, and maybe I'm totally off base here, is that something to consider?
It is.
At this point?
It is something to consider. I want to be diplomatic about it, but through the testimony, the city has continued to receive criticism related to the provision of sanitary sewer access to the residents up there, although there was no direct assessments or any cost to anybody that was not actually hooking up, either by they were required to by the county or because they wanted to for their own reasons. And the provision of water, and I'm just suggesting this to the council, to improve the public safety, given the testimony, do we need to rely upon that neighborhood? Because it was suggested by Darren, who doesn't live in the neighborhood, his neighborhood has water. He's in the Monroe's neighborhood. Is the council looking for a petition from the majority of the residents in that neighborhood for us to provide a water stuff? Because I'll be honest, before tonight, based on our past experience and what we've seen through this process, if we had gone and done it proactively, we would have come under criticism of dragging infrastructure into that neighborhood and one step closer to bringing in water and assessing it for water and everything else. I think it's something we should take a look at, but I just want to bring up that that option to improve, and that's not the whole reason. And it wasn't just about getting water there. That's a fringe benefit. Water would be closer, and you could bring water through at the time. But before we go there, I just want to suggest to the council that we need to be under criticism from the neighborhood because now we're pulling water into the neighborhood. And what might be speculated that might do to the neighborhood and the character of the neighborhood from there. But I do think from a public safety standpoint, our fire chief and our public works director and our police chief and the emergency management director would say, yeah, that's something we should take a look at.
One more question is, okay, so option 3, like right now this is on the calendar for 2023, budget, I guess, at least, and this is through 2026. So we're removing it until 2026, or at what point would it, I guess, reappear on the plan?
I guess it would be staff's intent that current council is directed, it's not a current project, that the intent is to preserve the right of way, to preserve the option in the future to create that connection if it's deemed necessary, appropriate, cost effective, the cost benefit is there, et cetera, et cetera. At this point, it will be listed when we do our discussion related to CP as a project that's been brought up in the past. We already have some information related to it, but it won't go back into the plan unless a future council, whether it's the group of 5 we have now or a future group of 5 directed to do so. So it would be out there and that option would be preserved, but staff would, based on the direction we have here, staff would not be bringing it back unless it was directed so by future council.
That's all I got.
All right, I have like a whole laundry list. We could probably talk for half an hour, but I'm not gonna do that because that's gonna bore everyone to tears. But a couple things I do want to touch on. So prior to the first public hearing, as everyone knows, we had Kate and I were at a meeting at the library with a number of residents from the Woodcrest area and some in the Windrose area that would be affected. And the assessment things came up, and a couple points that were brought up, and it's been touched on already, but I think they're really good points. We open it up to anything we do with creating a road is just likely going to have some sort of long-term impact to where some assessments are going to therefore be needed. So even though this particular project is not something that would involve assessments, I can understand that. And quite frankly, if 10 years from now, there's another city council taking a look at what we're going to do, because now there's a higher level of maintenance that's going to need to be done on that road. And maybe we do need to start putting curb and gutter in. Maybe we do need to pave it. That's something that we've always talked about doing, but we've never came up with a way to pay for it. I think it's extremely likely that the concerns of those residents has come to fruition, that, yeah, we're going to have that council in 10 years or whatever that time frame might be is going to have to figure out a solution to that. And I can't imagine there's going to be a great solution on the table aside from assessing. So while I just want to be crystal clear, this project in front of us would not involve assessments specific to that neighborhood. So one point that was brought up regarding the SSTS is just the inflated cost from when we had talked about this originally. I want to say 2016, maybe to where we are today. I had one resident that mentioned they're paying 35 grand when I think of the estimation was around 20 grand when we first did this. So that would, and I don't want to get into the details of that. That's not the topic here, but it does speak to some of the I don't want, well, maybe distrust is the right word. That the city may be forcing something upon the residents that the residents don't necessarily want, that is going to incur future bills to them. So I also want to address some of the comments that were made. They were made again tonight, and I saw them made last week, or excuse me, last meeting, about drivers and their lack of experience, and it's really an experience issue. You know, Corey stated many times, and he stated again tonight, this is not about the local public works. It's important to understand that public works goal and their job is to try and make sure the city runs from a ground up, literally standpoint, as efficiently as it possibly can and effectively as it possibly can. There's a fire and we're having to get calls from, or we're having to have Lonsdale may be a bad example, but if we're having Lakeville, we're having Credit River, if they develop a fire department. I'm just throwing out examples, but if they don't have what it takes to get up that hill in tough conditions, that is a problem. So I'm glad staff brought this forward. I believe wholeheartedly that Corey has received a number of calls over the years and is doing his job by bringing this to the city council for us to discuss. You know, same thing with Chief Brady and our fire chief, who is not on this call, but you know, their jobs are to look for the safety of the city, the safety of the residents. And if they took the position that, you know, it's just not going to be a popular project, so I'm not even going to bring it to the city council, to me, that's negligence. So I applaud Corey, I applaud Brady, I applaud Todd, I applaud everybody for bringing this forward, even though it's not a popular topic. You know, I got a lot more stuff written down, but I'm gonna just kind of cut to the chase. I'm absolutely for pulling this project from the CIP. There's a number of reasons for pulling this from the CIP. I could be talked into. It doesn't sound like there's anyone here that wants to talk me into it, but I could be talked into even selling the property and giving up the right of way. Probably not the best, maybe not the most practical solution, but you know, really to address this topic, to address concerns of this topic coming up again, and as some have claimed, kind of being snuck into the city budget. The only way to really prevent that I can think of is us selling the lot and a private party buying it, because our job as a city is to try and solve problems. Sometimes it's problems that haven't occurred yet. And I think it's realistic to expect that as long as we hold that lot, whether it be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whenever, this probably will come back up because, yeah, most neighborhoods are built with a second access for a lot of the reasons that have been stated. That said, this is an older community just from a development standpoint. While there are some within the community that would like to see a second access or at least an emergency access, I think the property owners in Woodcrest and those affected in the Windrose area have done exactly what we as a city council want them to do, and that's voice your concerns, whether it be petition, whether it be coming out in masses to different meetings, whether it be public hearings, whether it be side meetings set aside by members of the council to hear. We care, we're interested in your opinion. I would probably be a little more on the fence if it wasn't for in my opinion, the overwhelming majority of that neighborhood just not wanting this. So at the end of the day, do we spend 220 grand, if not more, on putting in a road that is going to have limited usage because it's only going to be for emergency access, and putting something in a neighborhood that could seriously change the impact of that, or the culture of that neighborhood, the visuals of that neighborhood, and it's really just not wanted. So I'm strongly of the opinion to pull this from the CIP for option 3. So that's my 2 cents. So, and it sounds like there's 4 of us that are kind of that opinion, and 1 that is interested in keeping it. At this point, we could discuss further. Otherwise, if someone wanted to make a motion, we could certainly entertain that.
So, Mr. Mayor, based on the majority opinion that I heard, we could entertain a motion to amend the draft CIP to remove the Woodcrest Windrose connection road from the CIP and make the appropriate changes to the text as accordingly. And then if that is satisfactory to the council, a second motion to consider adoption of resolution 2113 approving the plan as amended.
So, second.
Motion by Berg, second by Timmerman.
All right, Tom, you want to call roll?
Councilmember Shanky.
Aye.
Councilmember Novak.
Aye.
Councilmember Timmerman.
Aye.
Councilmember Berg. Aye. Mayor Julius.
Aye.
Thank you. Anything else from the council on this particular item?
No, I think the process worked, and I appreciate all the opinions either side of this, however you are, and this is good dialogue, and I'm glad we did it. So, all right.
Tom, would you mind just repeating very briefly what was just passed? I think you just did 2 motions in one, which is it's what I understood.
Yes. So the motion was to amend the plan to remove the Windrose Woodcrest connection road from the project and making all appropriate changes to the plan to reflect that, and then adopting the plan, adopting the resolution, adopting the plan.
Do you want 2 motions?
We'll have Terry and we have Andrea on the phone. Andrea, Terry, does it need to be 2 motions or can
No, 1 motion is fine.
Sorry, I'm muted. Let's move on to the next item in general, or yeah, let's just move on to the next item, the MWF concept plan.
Okay, on this item, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I am going to stop my screen share. Renee will be giving the presentation on this item, so she'll be pulling up and sharing her screen.
Yes. Thank you, Tom. Can you all see my screen? The PowerPoint?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, good evening, council and mayor. Tonight I'll be giving an overview regarding application received by the city for concept plan review and a business subsidy application for a tax increment financing assistance related to a housing project proposed by MWF Properties. And the first thing I'd like to do is introduce to you members of the team, the development team here tonight. Matt Yetzer is going to be giving a little background information regarding MWF Properties, and also the property owner, Al Vanasek, is attending the meeting tonight, along with the broker for the project, Bruce Rydeen with Surround Properties. So at this time, Matt, you can unmute your microphone. I'll turn it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Renee. Mayor, council members, it's good to see some of you guys again, and you know, we're excited to be back to you guys with this proposal here and an updated concept plan since we last spoke. So just as a reminder, a little bit of background on us. Been around since about about 2,200 units across the Midwest. Most of that portfolio is within the Twin Cities area. And both projects in the county specifically.
Matt, if you could-
Basically here
Matt,
in
if you could
Richfield,
stop for a
we have
second.
our own property management company. So really our focus is to be quality, deliver a quality project and be quality neighbors.
Matt, if you could mind stepping
Yeah.
in for about a minute, I don't know if it was trying for everybody on the call, but for a number of us, we were getting a serious lag issue. So if you could back up just about a minute in your spiel, that would be greatly appreciated.
Excellent. Well, I'll just start from the top then, Tom, and hopefully you don't have to rehear too much of it. You know, as I mentioned, we have about 2,200 units across the Midwest. A large majority of those are Section 42 workforce housing units. We're based locally here in Richfield, have an in-house property management company, Valair Property Management, which you know, allows us to have a lot of kind of hands-on day-to-day insight into how these projects are performing, how they're being maintained, and that's really been our focus as a long-term owner and operator here within the Twin Cities is that focus on maintaining the property and being good community members to the suburban communities we're in, which, like I mentioned, a few of those are within Scott County itself. So that's kind of the developer experience. I also included here a few slides on some recent projects we've developed that are similar to our proposal here, similar financing program, I should say. So you can see there, Boulevard 60 units in Mounds View, Thomas Avenue Flats in St. Paul there. And if you want to just keep flipping through, Renee, this will just give you guys an idea of our amenities, fitness room, community room with a kitchenette. Generally, we have a package room along with a community gathering area, lobby space. So here's a couple more projects, one in the metro, one down in Mankato. A few of our more recent developments are on the next slide there. So you'll see we have, you know, they're all pretty much along the same unit count, right? Because of some program restrictions, they're right in that, you know, 50 to 70 unit count range, which is, you know, fits with what we're proposing here, and kind of some varying designs and exterior materials based on feedback from neighbors, city staff, and city council members like yourself. So if you want to keep going through here, just to give you guys a little bit more of an idea of some of our more recent projects throughout the metro. The project features, I kind of touched on a few other items to note. Underground parking, which is included in rent, secure building access, and then we generally like to do what we can to make the projects as bike friendly as possible when there's nearby recreational areas or paths, and which is something we look into here as well. So just a kind of a 3,000 foot view of the background on our proposal here. 61 units spread across 1, 2, and 3 bedroom unit types. 123 parking stalls is what's being proposed. 1-to-1 underground parking, and then 62 surface stalls. So I think in Renee's report, it's about 1.7, a little over 1.7 stalls per unit. Or right around 2 stalls per unit, I should say. The Kale Group property, just to give you a little bit of background on what drove us or what led us to this property and to Al's site here, and what, you know, characteristics of the site make us think it's a good use for the workforce housing project we're proposing. So we really see it as an opportunity to provide a transition to some of the more commercial uses there towards 35, to, you know, some of the single family uses to the west there. And I know in talking to Renee and city staff, there's a high demand for rental housing. Not very much rental housing currently exists within the community. So we hope to help meet some of that need through this plan. Additional households, which help to drive future employer growth, commercial growth, and then at what we recognize as kind of a prominent entry into the community, kind of having a nice quality project that can establish that corner and act as an entrance to the community that way. So there's our contact information. That's pretty much all I had, but I will be here for questions that come up as Renee makes her presentation. So thank you guys for the opportunity.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
So I'm going to provide to the council a presentation that was very similar to what we provided to the Planning Commission. Again, KL, the property is owned by KL Group. MWF does have a purchase option on the property. They intend to apply to the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency for tax credits for this project. Again, a 61 unit multifamily 4-story over underground parking. And this would be an affordable housing project. Just a little bit about housing tax credits and the process for this particular round. MWF will submit the application for tax credits. Housing tax credits is a program that offers investors a reduction in tax liability in exchange for capital to build affordable rental housing units. The application for this round is due in July of 2021. Any applicants will not find out if regarding awards until December of 2021. And our understanding, Matt can confirm this, is that MWF intends to proceed with development of this project in 2022 only if the housing tax credit is successful application. Is that correct, Matt?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and support from the city is an important part of the housing tax credit application and does score the application more favorably. The city staff did review the proposal against the current 2030 and draft 2040 comprehensive plans, both of which allow multifamily housing at this particular location. The property, so the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plans. The property is currently zoned commercial B1, and it would need to be rezoned to either R4 or planned unit development to accommodate this particular project. And MWF has indicated that they would be seeking planned unit development zoning to allow the use, along with some site design flexibilities. So a little bit about PUD zoning is that it is intended to allow flexibilities in development of residential neighborhoods and provides for variation to the strict interpretations of a strict application of the city's zoning code in order to achieve an improved site design, while at the same time incorporating design elements that may exceed the city's standards to offset some of the variations. Specifically, the developer is seeking variations from the city's setback requirements, building height requirements, and parking standards. And in exchange, are proposing to incorporate more brick and stone into the building facade than would be required under the city's zoning code and provide for enhanced landscaping on the site. The overall lot size is about 10 acres, but there's a large amount of wetlands on this particular property. So the net acreage is just over 4 acres. The density proposed on the site is equates to 14.67 units per net acre. And this does meet the density objectives of both the 2030 and 2040 comprehensive plan. The city setback requirements from County Highway 2 and 91 are 50 feet from the right-of-way. The applicant is proposing a 24-foot setback from County Highway 2 and 26-foot setback from the County Road 91 right-of-way. That just zooms in a little bit further on the
setbacks. The city has a maximum height requirement in all of our zoning districts of 35 feet. The building elevations submitted do show 45 feet, plus some additional height for some parapets. So the building is proposed at 45 feet plus possibly a couple more feet in certain areas. As mentioned, the city does have building design requirements. Specifically for high density residential projects, we require that 25% of the building facades have an exterior finish of brick, stucco, or stone, and that possible decks or porches be provided for in the initial building plan. This particular project proposes a range of 27 to 33% brick or stone on all sides. Also proposed on the building elevations submitted show vinyl siding proposed, both vertical and horizontal. This is the rendering. You can see on the top drawing here is the east elevation. So as you're traveling west on County Road 2, this would be what you see. This is kind of hard to tell, but there's an L. You know, the building is L-shaped. The south elevation, so shown on the bottom as you're traveling north on County Road 21, this is where you would see the entrance into the underground parking, the only entrance, and again, that L-shaped building here. And shown in red is the percentage of brick and stone shown on each particular building elevation. This is the northwest elevation that would face the roundabout, the west, and the north. So we thought it was important for the Planning Commission to get a general scale of the size in terms of height and setback of the building. So we did try to provide a number of examples in other communities. This particular rendering of an existing building in Apple Valley is approximately 17 feet from the right of way, and it's 4 stories over main level parking. And it's also on a road that is very similar in nature to County Road 2. So we're trying to look for projects that would be very, very similar. And this is the most similar to get a sense of scale for the Planning Commission and City Council to see the height and setback of the building. And similarly, we do have trails along County Highway 2 and 91. So I'm just going to go pretty quickly through these photographs. This is a different project, but all of these buildings should give you a general sense of scale and setback. Okay, moving on to the city's parking requirements are based on the number of bedrooms per unit and based on the submittal, along with the guest parking requirement that we have. The project would require 157 parking spaces, 123 are proposed. So this is one of those areas that a deviation from city code is being requested. Would like to advise the City Council that the Planning Commission is currently considering amendments to our parking requirements that would reduce or actually eliminate the requirement for guest parking. So in this case, if that ordinance amendment does pass or is supported by the City Council, that would bring the requirement down to 126 spaces being required with 123 spaces being proposed in the current site plan. Landscaping, a very preliminary landscaping plan has been submitted showing landscaping around the north and west side of the building and along the north side of the parking lot to provide screening along the easterly parking lot, and then some landscaping around a monument sign, which is proposed along Highway 91. And this is one area that the Planning Commission provided input that they would like to see, you know, a very nice enhanced landscaping plan. Regarding access to the property is adjacent to County Highways 2 and 91, and Scott County controls the access on both of these roadways. Private access is not permitted. Permitted public street access is at the southwest corner of the property. So in this red box here, there will be a requirement that upon platting and development of the property, public right-of-way would need to be dedicated here, and a public street connection would need to be made. So possibly a small cul-de-sac or some configuration that would be a public street here, and then the driveway would technically come off of the public city street. The property owner was very active in working with and communicating with Scott County during the design of the roundabout, and there were accommodations made in the roundabout design that would allow for a southbound left turn lane into the property. So Scott County specifically designed the roundabout to accommodate that, although the southbound left turn lane was not constructed with the roundabout, and if requested would need to be constructed by the developer during this project. And then a northbound right turn lane will also be required, and those are requirements that will be imposed by Scott County. Trails have been constructed around the perimeter of the site during the recent roundabout construction project. We have asked that any internal sidewalks be connected to this perimeter sidewalk system. There's currently shown a connection to the County Road 2 sidewalk on the north. And there are not currently connections proposed to the County Road 91 sidewalk, mostly based on the current site design. It does present challenges to that. There is a large wetland on the site, as mentioned. There are no FEMA protected floodplains. There is a small small portion of the wetland is protected by the Department of Natural Resources. The area is shown in blue on the wetland map on the right. A buffer is required around the wetland. It's a vegetative buffer of 30 feet. The current plan submitted shows 25 feet, so that will need to be amended in the final submittal. There is some wetland mitigation or filling that would be required to allow development on this site. The wetland on the property does come very close to County Highway 91, so to gain access into the property, some mitigation or filling would be required. Area is kind of highlighted in yellow here on this drawing. Utility plans have not been submitted at this point until the project may be approved by Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. There's just a certain level of site planning that has been completed, and civil engineers have not been designed the project yet. And then input from the city's Parks Commission would be sought regarding park dedication, land versus cash. That has not happened yet, but would happen at the time of development. Planning staff did solicit comments from all of the city engineer, city public works director, fire chief, police chief, building official, and the Scott County Highway Department as we reviewed the concept plan. And the Planning Commission did review this project at their February meeting, and they did support the use of the property and a use of PUD zoning with using R4 district standards as a basis. The Planning Commission did support the reduced setback to 24 and 26 feet from the highway right-of-ways. The Planning Commission supported the increase in height. They supported the overall design of the building and not requiring decks as part of the initial dwelling plan. And they supported the overall percentage of block and stone that have been depicted on the concept plan. They did support the reduction in the number of parking spaces and the preliminary landscape plan that has been submitted. They did not, however, support the use of vinyl siding as exterior building material. So this just kind of sums up the deviations from the city code, building setbacks, building height, parking. And it's possible that stormwater ponding is typically dedicated to the city in an outlet. In this case, it may be just dedicated through the use of an easement, but that planning has not been done yet. So the Planning Commission recommended approval of the concept plan that was reviewed, subject to 29 items and conditions and 5 additional notes that are contained in the City Council packet, as well as the draft meeting minutes from the February 23rd meeting. Also included with the submittal was a business subsidy application, specifically an application for tax increment financing to assist in the development of the 61 unit Section 42 affordable rental housing project. The numbers submitted show a funding gap of $944,459 at this time. And the applicant has stated that the project is not financially feasible, but for the business subsidy. The property has a current estimated market value of $110,000. So current taxes paid to the city are based on that. We do know that in 2022, the county assessor has raised that market value to $500,000. This project would be assessed at approximately $10 million. So we have worked with the county assessor to give us an estimated market value should the project move forward, and they have opined that 9 to 10 million would be the estimated market value. So those numbers were used, or $10 million was used in the tax increment financing projections. And again, TIF would return the city, county, and school district portion of the taxes to the developer. As noted in the staff report, the staff did work with Ellers, our financial advisors, to help us run TIF projections. And based on their analysis, it would take 21 years to achieve the gap, or to return the gap in the funding that they are looking for to move the project forward. Staff's opinion is that there are a number of factors related to that may affect this funding gap. Number one, it may be 9 months before the project would be under construction, or 9 to 12 months. And there are a number of uncertainties right now related to the cost of construction, material and labors. It seems to be all over the news how fast construction costs are rising. And there's also a potential for a reduction in city water and sewer trunk and stormwater area charges. We have discussed that with the city council, so that would be an actual reduction in the gap that's currently shown. The gap that has been presented really is based on the current city fees. There's also a potential for reduction of city water and sewer connection fees. I know Tom has been working hard on that analysis, which has not been brought to the council yet, but is anticipated. And there's also a potential for a reduction in city park dedication fees based on an analysis that Haley is completing. At this time, I guess staff recommends, if the council supports the use of tax increment financing to assist in filling the gap that has been presented, staff would recommend that a resolution be adopted. A resolution has been drafted that states the city supports the project and the creation of a TIF district for a term of up to 21 years and an amount up to $944,459. The specific term and dollar amount would be approved in the future if the housing tax credit application is approved and upon a more detailed review of the financial gap at that time. And as the city considers the use of TIF for this project, I just want to point out that the city's housing plan and the draft 2040 comprehensive plan does identify housing goals. For the 4 goals are support preservation of existing housing stock, provide housing options for people in all stages of life and economic means, remove barriers to providing a variety of housing options, and provide opportunities for the city's share of affordable dwelling units. So there are 2 goals that are specifically met by this project. And as tools to carry out the housing goals, our housing plan also specifically states that the city will consider the use of TIF for proposals creating multifamily housing options that aren't currently available in the city, and that the city will consider TIF for multi-family housing developments that create dwelling units affordable to persons at 80% AMI and meet TIF requirements under state statutes. So wanted to review that. This particular slide I pulled out of a presentation that Haley prepared. As you know, Haley's been leading the charge on educating the Planning Commission and City Council on affordable housing issues. And the slide just kind of gives an idea of, based on the 2019 area median income is $100,000. And for this project would be affordable to those persons earning 60% AMI. And so that means these are just some rental options for so people meeting 60% AMI, a single person household. An affordable housing unit would pay approximately $1,000 in rent or less, and for a family of 4, $1,500 or less per month for would meet the definition of affordable housing. So requested action by council is discussion by council, and if the council supports the request, a motion to support the concept plan, which is site plan H, noting the 29 conditions and 5 additional notes as contained in the council memorandum, and possibly adopt resolution 21-14 supporting the creation of a tax increment financing district to assist in the 61 unit multifamily housing, affordable housing project. Turn it over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Renee. Josh, I know this is a area of interest of yours. Do you want to go first with comments, thoughts?
Sure. No, I appreciate that. And yeah, no, I mean, I think in my opinion, this is as close to a no-brainer for our community, for myself, that you can get. Just super stoked to see this back in front of us, moving forward, and absolutely 100% fully support moving this forward. You know, completely cool with the reduced parking requirements. I'll defer to Renee and or whoever else on the setback request and, you know, cutting it in half, what issues or that may bring or not. But I mean, I want to personally do whatever I can to help this move forward. And so I will just end there. And I think if this does move forward and get continued support, and maybe this goes without saying, but I would look for us to, as a city, provide like a letter of support for the application for the LIHTC funding, and perhaps even get Scott County to provide a letter of support. Maybe they will already do this, but I would look to do something like that as well. So.
All right. Who wants to go next?
Mayor, I have a question for you, or maybe Matt can answer it. One of the concerns of the planning commission was the vinyl siding. Was there a conclusion as to what would possibly be used instead of the vinyl siding?
Renee, do you want me to?
Yeah, I'd like Matt, you to go ahead and address that.
Yeah, so the other option we discussed at the planning commission meeting was cement fiberboard siding. It's another material we've used on some recent projects. And kind of what we discussed is, this is why we have these concept plan stages to get your guys' feedback on exterior materials, understanding the location of this site and kind of the importance of that intersection. That's something when we go through, if we're lucky enough to be funded next spring and get all the approvals through your guys' review, at this point, then when we come back in front of you for an actual or a full-on rezone application with the civil plans and fully developed architecturals, that's something that'll be reviewed by you guys again at that point for your feedback. But the cement fiberboard siding is something we've done in the past and seemed to be something that the planning commission supported as an exterior material as well. So that's just something we'll note in case we, and hopefully when we're back in front of you guys with a fully developed plan next spring.
Awesome, thank you, Matt. I am with Josh on this. I completely feel that we need to go ahead with this. I feel that the building is nicely constructed. Obviously, I agree with the planning commission. I would like to see the vinyl siding gone. So if they can do something else to make it even more attractive, would be fantastic. So I'm in favor.
I think the planning commission did a really good job with this as well. Who wants to go next?
Was over there. I don't know that I have anything additional to add. I agree with Kate and Josh.
All right. Bryce?
Yeah, I'm in agreement too. I think, like Josh said, it's a no-brainer. I think it's super important when we look at bringing different companies in, like Quick Trip or any other facilities like that, businesses, to be able to have housing like this that supports those jobs is huge for the community.
We are all unanimous as a council on this. This is going to be a good project for our city. So whatever we can do to help. So with that, can you bring back that screen that clarifies what staff? There you go. Thank you.
Motion, are you looking for a motion, Joe?
Yes, please.
Motion to approve resolution 21-14.
Second.
Motion by Josh, second by Kate. Tom, can you call?
Yes, excuse me. Councilmember Schenke?
Aye.
Councilmember Novak?
Aye.
Councilmember Timmerman?
Aye.
Councilmember Berg?
Aye.
Mayor Julius?
Aye. Motion passes.
Okay. Can I just confirm that the motion included to the support of concept plan H and the conditions as noted in the?
If you read my mind, that was included in my motion.
Okay. I thought I heard that.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, do you have any other questions on that? Anything?
No, that's all I have. Thank you guys very much for your support, and we will be in touch to keep moving along.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, I think we're on to reports.
Okay, as soon as Renee relinquishes control of the share screen, I will move into that. Right. Under reports, we have two items under administration. The first one is an update on the utility extension project to the interchange area. As I've been updating the council, we've been trying to work through final versions of the contracts with the ownership on the east side of the interchange. They have requested a change in the assessments for the prepayment of trunk fees, and the structure of how we're handling that from what we had discussed previously. Staff has been looking at the impact, quite honestly, to the city's cash flow to be able to accommodate it. The change would shift some of the cash flow burden off of the property owner and onto the public, so to speak. We looked at it at the end of the day because the CDA, through their gap financing that they've agreed to provide, covers, would indemnify the city against a lot of the direct impact of that. I don't know that there's a significant issue for the city itself to say no to it. However, the structure is different from what we discussed with the CDA, and it does, under certain scenarios, shift the burden. So, for example, under the way that the current agreement was structured, the property owners would be responsible for paying prepayment of trunk fee assessments of $50,000 per year, every year for 15 years, unless they're paid off early. What would happen is if they had more development within a year than $50,000 paid, is that would be banked and would be used to shave the peak off of a future year that was more than $50,000. The approach that's being asked is that anything paid more than $50,000 in 1 year would automatically roll forward to buy down the assessments in the future year, regardless. So, for instance, you had a year where you paid $200,000 in fees, it would buy down subsequent 3 years worth of any payments at all. We understand the need for the ask. It makes things work financially better for them. But as you can see, the way the numbers work, it creates, based on the CDA filling in gaps, increases burden on them for certain development scenarios. So the worst case scenario where nothing develops, the worst case scenario remains the same. That's highly unlikely, but it does increase the burden of the CDA scenarios where things change. Council recall that we presented what we call the staggered low growth scenarios, one of the models that we presented, or one of the scenarios that we presented to the council and discussed with the CDA and the property owners when we were working our way through this originally. That was basically a staggered growth with a slow start on the project. The difference over the course of the 15-year agreement with the CDA would be a difference of $300,000. Now, at the end, it's still within the parameters of the agreement that the CDA has already agreed to, both with regards to annual contribution and with regards to total contribution. So it fits within the box. But we are concerned about the relationship with the CDA and a concern about a bait and switch situation, because we discussed the terms of the assessment and therefore their resulting burden being different than what's being proposed. So staff has had some initial discussions with CDA staff. They'll be having some further discussions, and we're hoping to find out by the end of the week whether or not they would be open to the change that's been requested. Staff's recommendation to council would be that if the CDA is okay with the change that's being requested with regards to the assessment structure, that we would take that approach with property ownership on the east side of the interchange. That we would go back and we would revise our agreements with property ownership on the west side of the interchange, because it would be fair with regards to how we would approach. And they would probably view it be more advantageous to them. It would not require any changes to our agreement with the CDA. It's just a matter of making sure that everybody's going to their size wide open. Nobody feels like the terms changed or the circumstances changed after they've already agreed to it. If the CDA does not agree or feel that that's what they agreed to, it would be our intent to go to the ownership on the east side and basically tell them, either you're in or you're out. This is what we talked about for the last several months. This is what everybody else that's partnering on this project has agreed to. So either it's okay or it's not. If you're out, we would reduce the scope of the project to basically extend water to the east side of or to the west side of the interchange, not go underneath the interchange, and would not go to the sewer on the east side of the interchange. That would essentially be the Park 35 area without utilities. It would improve the ability to get utilities there to some extent because they'd be up to the interchange, but you'd still be in a situation where the city would not be in a position to be able to advance fund it, which is why we sought the assistance from the CDA. It would place greater burden on that project and ultimately on the property owners with regards to, their ease of selling it to a developer and developers' ability to develop the property. For example, before this arrangement that we arrived at with the gap financing from the CDA, the east side of the interchange was having to look at very large projects, such as the Amazon project that we were a strong contender for, the SER project that was going to go to Lakeville, which we were a strong contender for. But those are projects that were hundreds of thousands of square feet in size. If we get the utilities to the other side, you're not having to chase those projects that, because of the scale, pay enough fees to allow you to consider building infrastructure. It would be, you could look at smaller projects, 80,000 square feet. The number of fish you can chase increases if you're not only fishing for muskies, right? So ideally, this would be the way that we would go. But if our partners on this feel this isn't what they agreed to up front, it would be our recommendation that we would do the scope of the project, those people that are willing to partner under those terms. But if the CDA is okay, we recommend doing the full project. So we're looking for, this is an update, but we're also looking for some feedback from the council.
Quick question for you, Tom. When you talked to the CDA, what was your overall feeling when you were expressing what was going on?
I was not involved in that direct conversation. Renee was contacting staff on our behalf. I will refer to her to get feedback on that.
I spoke with the CDA's finance person today, Adam, and he seems supportive. The proposed parameters are still within the limits of what the CDA was willing to annually participate in, and within the limits of the maximum that they were willing to loan to the city overall for the project. So I think his feeling is that it's still acceptable, but he was not willing to finalize that recommendation without speaking to his management team, which is expected to occur tomorrow.
Thank you, Renee.
Any other thoughts or questions? Okay.
Actually, I do have one more question. Tom, if the CDA does not approve this, we only go to the west side of 35.
Yep.
Okay. Then in the future, would it have to be whoever is in charge of the east side of 35 to pay for it to go under 35? Or are they gonna, do you think they're gonna end up coming back to us and ask us to do it on our expense? Who's gonna pay for it to go under 35 at that point?
The way it would work, and we discussed with the developer over there in the past, is we would pay for it. The reality is that there's a certain volume of debt service that we would take on as a city. And so there has to be enough fees coming off the project to be willing to take that risk, to take that on. And so you're talking really large projects, which we're going to pay a large amount of fees that were a significant portion of the debt that we would be taking on. I think that would still be the case. And that's why the partnership with the CDA worked, because with them basically doing financing between whatever fees we might be bringing off the project, it allows it to be basically kind of a neutral hit to the city. Over time, we'll have to pay it back, but in the near term, and without having to rely on development in other places in the city to support that project. We would go back to the situation we were before. We would have utilities out to the west side of the interchange, so that Meetingon properties would begin to open up or have the potential to open up for the land uses that are guided there. But for that large footprint industrial type users or any kind of commercial on that side, you would have to have a critical mass for us to be able to reasonably consider it. I don't think, and from our past discussions, the full burden of bringing that over is really significant.
Okay.
To run some of it because we're using the risk to where it's acceptable.
Okay. All right.
So Tom, are you looking for anything specific from us on that?
Basically, I'm looking for feedback on the strategy that I laid out, that if the CDA is on board, we'll move forward with amending all the agreements accordingly. If the CDA is not on board, we'll basically indicate that to the east side and say either you're okay with the structure that's proposed or we're cutting you out, to simplify it.
Is anyone not on board?
Sounds good to me.
I'm on board. Good to me.
Okay, that's the feedback that I needed. Thank you.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is our normal item that we have under administration, which would be council meeting format. So for the last 2 meetings, we've gone to a hybrid format where the council members that are interested in doing so could meet in the council chambers. The public would still participate virtually. There's been this kind of this ongoing discussion about, you know, what does it look like going forward, especially now that there's more and more vaccinations coming out. You know, what do we want to do going forward? So the council has requested that we keep this item on the agenda every meeting, so we at least touch on the topic.
I want the public back.
I agree with you, Joe. I want public back.
So in that case, if the council wants to go back to in-person meetings, we would be discontinuing our Zoom meetings. And it would be an in-person situation. We do have limited capacity in the council chambers, as we've discussed in the past, of only 12 to 15 individuals in addition to council. But normally for 95% of our meetings, we have less than that within the audience. However, for example, if we have a public hearing such as we had tonight, there's no way we would be able to accommodate that here. We would have to do it at a alternate facility. The technology resources aren't as great, but we would have to consider, we've done that before.
Yeah,
it's ideal.
I think that's fine.
What happens if for, you know, the unlikely situation that there are 20 people here for a meeting, then what happens?
So what we would end up doing is we would have to, reality is we'd have to fix it on the fly. I'd probably go get some painter's tape, put X's on the floor out in the hallway. They'd all have to stand 6 feet apart. We do have speakers in the hallway they could hear, but might not be able to actually see what's going on in the council chambers. And we would have, if it's something that is involving a public participation, and we think some of the people in the hallway might be wanting to participate, we'd have to go through some extra effort to make sure that they have that opportunity to participate.
Is it possible, let's say, I mean, it would be awesome if we had 24, 25 people here, that we could set them up in the next room and then have like a laptop or something where they can be streaming it. I don't know.
That would be going back to the Zoom situation and participate. We could put a Zoom something in the corner, but we don't have, that's the only way we have live streaming capabilities to make it fully interactive, or to provide live streaming from a regular audio visual with the sound and everything would require upgrades to our system, which quite honestly, I don't know how long or how expensive that would be.
Okay.
I mean, reality, that's not going to happen, but just knowing that we have some sort of on-the-fly plan is all.
It wouldn't be the first time that we unexpectedly had a bunch of people show up, but you're right, it happens very, very rarely, just based on the agenda, the level of contact we have before meetings, and contacting the council. We usually have a pretty good idea if we're going to have a larger than typical crowd.
And I'm totally cool with moving forward. I guess what I would ask is we get this on our budget discussions moving forward, so we can figure out how to get the resources, the technology that we need, so that folks like Gene and others who may choose to not attend in person and have had the ability to do so remotely, we can get back to a hybrid version that works for the manageability of it all. And we're going to cut people out, and I think that sucks. And I think we should learn from the last year and really leverage this moving forward. And not just revert back to normal just because we want to have people in person or have meetings in person, because ultimately I think what this has shown us is we've gotten just as much, if not more, participation by residents through these types of methods that I just would hate to lose that.
We can certainly do some research on that and bring it back to the council. Without having done it, I can cite one item in my discussion with my peers in other communities. The only communities I know that are doing a full dual type situation are communities that have they have full-time or 3/4 time media people, and they have a much more advanced audiovisual system than we have. I'm not saying there aren't ways around that, but it would require some research. But those communities I know that do it are those cities that are televising live on a public channel, and they've got somebody in an AV room running stuff, and they have and it's a little more sophisticated. That doesn't mean you can't do it on cost effectively. We've been able to figure out how to do it for years, but let me do some research on that.
Is it possible to still stay Zoom so we don't lose like Gene or others that are attending, but then also have public, or is that not possible?
It's not, we'll have to have a discussion. I maybe give some time to research it. If you're looking for a fully if you're looking for people to simply be able to view live stream, that's different than if you're wanting people, the public, to participate fully virtually. Those are two different approaches, and the latter is a little more complicated and potentially requiring additional, possibly more expensive. We'd have to research it.
So council, are we okay? It sounds like we are. Are we okay going back in person with the public and then continuing to work on ways to improve this process?
Well, and before I say yes, I mean, I'm just looking at the screen, so correct me if I'm wrong, we'd be bringing Brady, Renee, potentially Rich, Corey back, Patrick in here, because they want, if they want to attend, they're going to have to attend in person. So therefore, we're taking that 15 that we could have in the public down to now 10, because we're going to have other staff that are going to be here as well. Right?
Yes and no. They would be in the building. They would not necessarily need to be in the room, and whether or not the room would depend on how many other people are in the room at the time. So if we have a full crowd, they would probably be in the building and would get a text from me or Linda that, hey, your item's just about up, come up. If you think about it, large cities, large county buildings, it's not uncommon for staff to be back in their departments and they just get buzzed that their items coming up on the agenda and they run out for it. For us, just because of the time of day we hold meetings and because of our the amount of people we have here, it's more convenient for them to be in the room and participate in that way, but we don't have to do it that way while we're in this transitional period until we get back to, I guess we should say, normal.
Is it fair to ask, I see that he is on, Gene, is it fair to ask if he would be upset if we were not able to Zoom it for him, or if he would be able to attend live? He's here almost every 2 weeks, and I would hate to see that participation go away,
I don't
but
think he's on anyone.
He's there. He's muted. Gene, are you still there?
Maybe we put him to sleep.
No, I had to turn the mute off. Or unmute it, whatever. Now, what was the question again? Oh, yeah, I'll be heartbroken if I can't attend. I won't sleep all night.
Perfect.
I would be less likely to attend in person, I can tell you that.
We do need to get to a point where we can effectively stream or broadcast our meetings, which was Josh's point earlier. We made progress by recording them and getting videos posted to YouTube. We're making progress, but I don't think we're done with where we need to be. So, but I think it's important we get back in person with the public. So I'm not hearing anyone opposed to that yet.
And right now, my biggest concern is still because of the pandemic.
Okay.
I really wish there was a way we could do both, but if we can at least look into it.
I do have a question for the city council regarding the planning commission. Just looking for direction regarding Zoom or in person, or if you would leave that up to the planning commission.
The same would go for the Parks Commission as well.
I would like them to be back, but I would be interested to hear any pushback or concerns that they would have.
Well, I think if we as a council come back in person, then I feel that all of the other should also come back.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I just don't want to discount if someone points out something we're not thinking of, or if someone has, but yeah, I do agree with Kate.
I think the issue would be is if you have a commissioner who, for personal reasons, would prefer not to be meeting in the face-to-face setting, what that would mean. So I think there's two approaches. One, you can say, we highly encourage it. It's up to each commission to determine whether or not they want to operate at whatever levels, whether you want to opt for virtual, hybrid, or in person, and you can choose, or only hybrid or in person. It's up to the council. Or if you're just simply saying, no, this is the change, this is our expectation. The boss is telling you, this is how we're going to be doing public meetings.
I think I like the highly encouraged, but obviously they have to go with their comfort level.
But doesn't that get us right back in the situation of we're doing both?
Look,
they would either do what we're doing now, they would do full virtual, or they do full in person.
I feel if you're gonna be in a position where you need to face the public, the sooner you can be able to look people in the eyes directly, I think the better. And I think the planning commission does have to do that from time to time. Parks, maybe, I guess I'm not sure if it's as much, but so I think it's important. But again, I would like to hear from them. I mean, is it possible that maybe it goes on each of their next agendas to discuss and make a recommendation to us?
Yep.
Yeah. And I guess adding my 2 cents, as Commissioner Wolf did note tonight, I think all Scott County residents will have an opportunity to be vaccinated through the county probably within the next month or 2. So that might affect the timing as well.
Council, any other thoughts?
Do we need to do anything with the peacetime emergency stuff, or if that's in place? I mean, that's what's allowed this to happen.
Correct. So that's a very good question, Josh. So we are able to have virtual meetings of the council. That doesn't mean that we can, and Andrea, correct me if I'm wrong, that doesn't mean that we can't live stream, and it doesn't mean that we can't provide for live participation, streaming or virtual participation from the audience. But for the council to actually either live stream and not have the public in the room, or participate from a remote location, that is only possible under Minnesota state statute because of the emergency condition, and only while the emergency order is in place for the city. That being said, that will remain in place until the council votes it out and is determined there's no longer a need for local emergency. Council, recall the reason that we adopted it, one was for how we conduct our meetings, but to also give the city some flexibility with regards to reacting quickly, doing certain purchasing items, et cetera, which we haven't utilized a lot, but have to some degree. So at some point, as people become more vaccinated, there will need to be that discussion about what are the criteria under which council should be bringing back action to the council for consideration on that item. Personally, I don't think we're there yet, but but the way things are trending, by the time, as already indicated, we have the majority of the population that's vaccinated. We're no longer looking to have virtual meetings in any manner, providing that option for commissioners. And it's not just for the council, it's for our commissions as well. For any of our public meetings, that would be one aspect of it, but we also have to be certain that we don't need those powers for the other purposes. And that's where, Brady and I will sit down and have that discussion, and we'll come back and give you a recommendation. I don't think we're there yet, but I think maybe doing that is that's when we need to start looking at that.
Just want to say it's good to be having this conversation. All right. So where are we at?
My understanding is that we will be having a full in-person meeting effective our next meeting.
Okay.
And then staff is directed for purposes of this upcoming budget cycle to look at options for providing live streaming and or virtual participation from the audience and what that might entail and cost.
Okay. Sounds good. Corey.
I just have one quick thing. As most of you know, City Hall parking lot's been in pretty rough shape for years. We actually were going to get it redone last year, but then with the police condition, we decided not to. So I have obtained quotes to redo the rest of the City Hall parking lot, and that will get done sometime this summer. So, and that's all budgeted out of capital outlay, so there's no big increases or anything like that. And our numbers actually came in a lot less than what we had originally thought. So things are looking good.
Perfect. Thanks, Corey. All right, Hollywood, it's your turn.
Good evening, Mayor. Again, thank you. Just two quick points. One, yesterday we had day one of our new hire interviews. We interviewed 12 candidates, quality candidates, every one of them. We do a second round of first day interviews tomorrow. We interview 3 more. So we interviewed a total of 15 candidates. Once we're done interviewing all of them, April 15th, we have a second round interviews. And then we hope to get at least one candidate then selected and start them in the background phase, and then begin with psychological testing, physical testing, medical testing, and then hopefully have them start July 1st as we have planned. So things are going great with that. Bunch of great people, so very excited. And then we have, as I had my memo, switched our chemical defense spray from a pepper-based to a product called Repulse. And it is an agricultural-based product based on an ammonium sulfate product that was designed to keep hay from molding. So it's a really neat product. Why this is big for us is we're always looking to minimize use of force. And this Repulse spray really minimizes the amount of time you have to have somebody with the burning sensation on their face. It really mitigates quickly, which is unlike pepper spray. Other advantages are you can spray somebody with it and move in immediately, as opposed to not being able to get to them because the pepper is so intense. And then it really reduces the risk of the officer being contaminated. So this Repulse spray, a brand new product. As a matter of fact, I'm very proud to say we're the first department in the United States of America to put this on our belts. So I'm very proud of that we were able to react quickly and get this product on there. It's awesome. And in order to put my money where my mouth was, I was sprayed with this product. It was absolutely horrible, but in my Hollywood fashion, I videotaped, or excuse me, digitally recorded it. And it's now on YouTube. So if you Google Elko New Market Police Department and Repulse, REPULS, you can watch that 7-minute video of your chief being sprayed in the face with this awful product. So I think it's a great thing for our department, our city. It shows we're always willing to update our toolbox in order to minimize the amount of force we have to use and to effect an arrest or detention. So with that, I'm open for questions. Otherwise, that can be it, Mayor.
So any questions?
Brady, how many applicants were there?
We had a total of 30 applicants. Of those 30, 26 were actually eligible. Several of them didn't include certain aspects of the application that were mandatory. So down a little bit, but surprisingly and proud to say, every one of them, I mentioned our recruitment video, every one of them watched the video, and I'm really happy to say that the views on the video is up to 500 views for a small city recruitment video. That's fantastic, and it keeps growing. we asked them that in the interview if they watched that, and they all really appreciated it, and it affected their decision to apply here. I'm hearing from my chief partners, to name a few, Belle Plaine was down at 22 total applicants. There's Richfield, first tier suburb, St. Louis Park, they're getting the low teens for total apps. So it's lower than what I would like, but we got higher than many other cities. So very happy with it.
The other issue is that there's an uncharacteristically large number of openings at this particular point in time. We're normally typically only competing against a few positions. Brady, how many openings were there during our posting?
Typically it's 10 to 15 in the Twin Cities, and we saw upwards, Twin Cities in the state, 10 to 15 openings. We saw upwards of 35 to 45 open cities just requesting officers, and many of them were multiple officers needed. So we're in a situation, council, where we need to react quick. When we find somebody we like, we need to get their testing, get their background, get everything done extremely quick and get them that offer, because if they're a good candidate, they got 3 or 4 departments begging for them. So I think I mentioned I was able to get Brenton to come to us by persistent phone calls to him, telling him why Elko New Market was the place to be. So I recruited him heavy, and just to show you the difference, we finished our background 5 days before Carver County, and Carver County were buying their uniforms 5 days after I was buying Brenton's. So that's how close he was to going to Carver County. So we fight for the good applicants, but I'm up for it. And as you can tell, I'm a salesman for Elko New Market, and I love it here, and I think it shows. So I think we're going to get a great candidate.
Another thing to note, and this is probably no surprise to the council, is that nearly every single candidate, maybe every single candidate, notes that the level of support that the community has for the police department is and the fact that we have a heavy community-oriented policing philosophy are major decisions. So one, you're gonna have people that naturally acclimate towards that, want to apply, but it's mentioned with all the candidates that we have. And it was very interesting. A number of the candidates, when we asked them about other departments where they're also looking at, and one of the things that we commonly said, and it might just be people in an interview, but they said, everybody says they do community-oriented policing, but you guys actually do it, or you do it on a different level than other places do. When you look through what you're actually engaged in, it's different than a lot of other agencies. It's not to the same, they're not engaged in the community to the same degree. So that's nice to hear.
Yeah, it is good.
And Bryce will know this from back when he was in policing. And when I started, I applied with 800 people to Brooklyn Park for one position. So back in the 90s, it wasn't uncommon to have 300-400 people. 500 I tested with Shakopee. I mean, it was incredible numbers. And now, Bryce, I'm sure might have heard this, there's departments around the country that are paying you $10,000 to move to their department. And after a year of service, if you make it past probation, they're giving you another $5,000 to $10,000 signing bonus. So around the country, thank God we're not at that point yet, but it is way different than when I started 26 years ago. So I think we're doing great. We got a lot going for us. And I'll be bold what Tom said. The reason we made the recruitment video was to show off our brand new police department. All the candidates, after they were done interviewing, I took them on a tour of the police department because I wanted to show them how much our community cares about us. And every one of them, their mouths were on the floor at how nice that facility is. And when it comes down to us or Lonsdale or Belle Plaine or another city, that's going to make a difference, that the community appreciates them. So thank you very much for everything you guys do for us and making my job easier.
Thanks, Brady.
Well, thank you.
As far as the chemical defense spray, it is legal for anybody to have for yourselves, for personal protection. It's a great product. We believe in it. So watch that video if you want. Otherwise, if you guys ever have any questions about the tools in our toolbox, let us know.
I have the video up right now. I'm not gonna play it, but-
Go ahead and share your screen.
Yeah, let's not. It's not pretty.
Your face is still swollen. Is your tongue?
Oh my God. It was bad. I don't recommend it. When a police officer asks you to do something, please do it.
So you don't recommend being sprayed in the face by chemicals?
Not this stuff, man. No. But it's a great tool for you to keep somebody from harming you. So.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Brady.
Thank you, Council.
Assuming no fire updates.
Only that we're currently going out for firefighters. We did last year because of COVID and school was canceled, for firefighter 1, firefighter 2, first responder. We are going out for applications. So far, we've had a nice solid response. So that's looking good. That closes April 9th.
How many have you had come in so far?
We have 6 applications in so far, which is pretty strong. Typically, you get 3/4 of your applications in the last 3 days. So being this strong early in the process generally indicates that we'll have a decent sized pool.
April 9th is closing?
Yep.
All right. Rich?
I have nothing to report, but I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Anyone have any questions for Rich?
Can we
Appreciate it, Rich.
Rich with chemical defense spray?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So I've decided to say what I was gonna say in the first place, which is I retroactively cede my time to Brady.
Right. What's next? Parks? Oh, community development. I'm sorry.
Yeah. We don't have anything in community development tonight, unless you have any questions for Renee.
And parks?
So Park and Recreation Commissioner appointment. We are running a little bit behind the Planning Commissioner appointment process, but we do have a commissioner who has a term expiring at the end of March. Pending any further council direction, it would be our intent to post the position tomorrow with the intent that we'd be making an appointment before the end of April for that person to start within May.
Do they not want to return?
They do want to return.
So if we did it with the planning commission where we just reappointed them, if they wanted to return, should we not do the same for parks?
That's purely council discretion based on council rationale. The commissioner doesn't.
Didn't we make the decision a while back that we're going to post everyone?
That's what we're basing it on. Is the previous direction from the council was that unless otherwise directed, we would post every time. The reason that we brought it back for specific council discussion this last time was that we had such high turnover in the commission in a very short period of time, the planning commission, in a very short period of time. In this case, we aren't seeing that same level of turnover. We might in the future, but right now we haven't seen that turnover recently. That commissioners indicated that they would be reapplying for the position. So if we had nobody else, we'd have a very solid commissioner to serve. And then of course, if we are posting, and that's really what we're asking, is we would need a council member to serve on the interview panel.
My 2 cents being a 3-time applicant to some different positions is that, the person on the commission or the person on the council or the one that has previously ran for council is the chosen applicant. So are we wasting time posting the position and not just letting a person who has successfully filled the role carry on?
It's a fair point. you know, my argument for posting it is I want to give everyone an opportunity. And I want to, you know, occasionally, I don't think we have any of these at the moment, but, or that we have, but occasionally you do have a commissioner that has some issues, whether it be not showing up to meetings or something like that. And, you know, I think it's just a good practice to open that up for, you know, open that to other candidates and make a decision periodically. But to your point, we do kind of have a tendency to do what you just said. You know, I think speaking personally, you know, I've always had a lot of respect for people like yourself, Amanda, that have really pursued being involved. And I want to encourage that. I want to find ways to do it, but I don't know, maybe to your point, it's not the most effective way.
Well, and I mean, eventually it worked for me, but I just feel like, I don't know, I'm like a teeter-totter, I guess, like make an argument either way. I don't want to discourage people not, I can't speak. I don't want people not to apply. And I guess I would rather they have the opportunity, but it's a little bit discouraging when you apply for something that the odds are not in your favor, you know, and that you put you're right to the point of that sometimes we have commissioners who might not be pulling their weight or filling that role. And so do we want to just continue the course of posting? I guess maybe would it be something to post for a shorter period of time, or I don't know.
Well, actually up until a few years ago when the council provided this direction, we just went to the council every time and said, hey, do you want to post for the position or not? The intent was that if there were issues with a commissioner with regards to attendance or other performance issues based on the standards that have been established by the council, staff, primarily me, would be aware of that, communicate it back to the council, and the council can make a decision about whether or not that merited posting the position. There are reasons to post the position. One is, as the mayor indicated, you open it up. There's always just kind of this conceptual concern that if you have somebody that's been on the commission, planning commission hypothetically for like 14 years, at some point, is it a good idea to bring some new blood in to the commission? The council, for example, decided not to post the planning commission because it happened just naturally, where the majority of the commission turned over in like a 3-month period, you know, so it can happen that way. The other reason for doing it, aside from just the new blood item, is it provides an opportunity to go out into the community and collect names of people that are interested and possibly guide them towards other opportunities to participate in the city. That has happened more recently, but honestly, historically, typically what I found is if somebody applied for a position, if they didn't get it, we never saw them again. And so to go to where, for instance, Amanda's kind of the exception, she kept reapplying. We've had a couple of people over the years. And, but we have had situations where people have applied and they've said, oh, I'd be happy to participate in a different way. And we go and actively recruit them because they're on the radar at that point, and we just never hear from them again. That might just be changing. It might be the nature of the community. It might just be our experience at a point in time. But the rationale is that you're trying to identify those future leaders. And that's consistent with our COG philosophy, because we want to identify that leadership in the community, build and create succession for the governance and leadership in the community going forward. So there's arguments to be made both ways. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to how you approach it from a staff standpoint. It's nice to have some consistency on how we approach it. Part of the rationale is that if we post every time, we know to just post it every time. But it's whatever the council wants to do.
I'm convinced we can post. Carry on.
Well, Bryce, I wanted to get your feedback as well. I mean, because you've kind of been through a similar spot, right? I mean, did you find it was a discouraging process? I mean, Be honest.
No, I didn't think it was a discouraging process. I mean, I think how we did it this last round made sense just based on, that fast turnover. I thought it was a good process overall, and I think somebody who applies for a position like that obviously has high interest. So if there's somebody who maybe doesn't get the position and comes back again, great. And if not, I think it's a nice opportunity to be able to show them other ways they can participate. So I think the whole posting idea for Parks and Recs is a good idea. I think it's probably a more popular commission spot than planning. I don't know, maybe, but
Certainly more fun.
yeah, it's not as boring.
Honestly, it tends to be cyclical, where we tend to get the more interest. I do have to note though, and I think having this discussion would be unfair not to point out that we have gotten consistent feedback from sitting commissioners that it's not very popular that they have to reapply for positions that they're already in and that they have to compete for the position. There's a, if you don't like me, let me go, that type of thing. And they've all reapplied because they want to be there and they will go through the process that's required to be there. But we have gotten informal feedback that it's not the most popular thing.
Could we?
At the risk of sounding cold, I completely understand, but I still think it's the right thing to do. I mean, if I were in their shoes, I wouldn't like it either. But we have to run for re-elections. I mean,
yep.
I don't know. I can see why it wouldn't be popular, but I still think it's a good practice. All right, so are we on board? We're on board with posting it, so we need to find someone to be on the interview process, right?
I'm not necessarily volunteering, but I want to say there needs to be an odd number of interview panel members.
I think Amanda would be great.
So we will make sure that there is an odd number of panelists upcoming. So
Our planning commission interviews, we had an even number and we were split. So we got lucky. One of the, I don't know if lucky is the right word, one of the candidates withdrew. So we didn't have to battle that. If nobody else wants to be on the team, I have no problem.
All yours.
12 interviews sounds exhausting. I know this is much, it's not quite as detailed, but. Bryce, for
All
sure.
right.
I haven't even started yet.
Oh, you're not in the first round?
No,
You are?
second.
Okay. 12 interviews?
in one day.
I'm still,
We still have 3 more tomorrow.
I'm blown away. I'm tired.
No, for Bryce, it'll be between 5 and 7.
Oh, perfect.
Still a lot for one day. Okay.
Okay, so that's the direction we needed. Thank you. The minutes from the last meeting of the Parks Commission was in the council's packet. If you have any specific questions, I don't know if Mark is on. I've basically given the direction to our staff on some of these reports. If you don't have a specific action item, it's not necessary for it to be here. So if you have any questions for them, I can carry it forward and then I can get a response back to council.
Farmers market.
We're hoping to have a report next time. Kevin had or is going to be having a meeting with the director of the St. Paul Farmers Co-op, which runs the farmers market. And he was hoping by the time he came back at the March 25th meeting, he would have, the April 8th meeting, he would have a more definitive answer. Basically, in short, where we are in the process is we're kind of just informally facilitating locally, helping line up a site, helping with vendor recruitment. We'll, at least through the initial season, provide some on-site supervision and troubleshooting to make sure everything flows smoothly. But the reality is that the St. Paul's Farmer Market, it's their operation with people that are signed up and people that are renting from the site. the actual site location. So we don't have that direct involvement. And you can recall when the presentation was given previously, the options were to do it ourselves, which are historically not as successful because we don't have the connections, and the time demands are significant from everybody we've talked to that does it. And so having this relationship, but it also means we're kind of at their mercy as to their timelines and how quickly they move along. All the feedback has been positive, but they're a very casual organization. And so we are trying to respect that as we're moving forward. But Kevin has an upcoming meeting. We should have something more definitive in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Hey, Mayor, may I interrupt?
Please.
Sorry to interrupt. I just got a call from Josh. I just want to give you all a heads up. TDF Liquors was just robbed at gunpoint about 40 minutes ago. No threat to the public that we know of. No suspect. He fled on foot heading past the double wide. You're going to notice a whole lot of squad cars. There's like 6 or 7 in the surrounding city hall, neighborhood, parking lot area. I just wanted to let you know that in case, God forbid, you saw the cars out there, but no threat to you or anybody right now. Investigation's ongoing. I'll keep you updated if there's any more information, but I wanted to get that out to you right away. So sorry to interrupt. I'll stay on the meeting. I'm getting updates right now, as a matter of fact. So I'll let you know if there's any more, okay?
Brady, real quick question for you. Do I need to run over to the restaurant?
Suspect wasn't going in that direction,
Okay.
and believed to probably jump in a car. Canine couldn't pick up a search. So right now we're just gathering information. In my long career, they don't tend to hit more than one place at one time, especially in this type of town setting. So I don't, right now we have no information that anybody else is in jeopardy. No one was hurt, no one was injured. A gun was just displayed during the robbery.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Thanks, Brady.
I'm going to mute again.
Okay. I don't know how you transition to CC, but you're gonna find a way, I know.
Well, the drive-through egg hunt is on Saturday. So that starts at 10:30 at Eagle View. So yeah, hope to see some faces. I will be there.
Thanks, Amanda. Let's see, scale. I wasn't at the last scale meeting. I don't know if anyone was that wants to give an update.
I was. Tom, you were there too. They went over and did I get the slides to you? I thought I did.
Are you typing in?
GNP, yeah.
You sent them out.
Okay, so all we went over at scale were those PowerPoint slides. So if you guys just take a look at those, and if you have questions, just let me know.
All right. Executive committees in a couple weeks. Service delivery.
Same.
All right. Let's see, Unified Transit Management Plan. Kate, we're both doing that. I don't see anything on my calendar. Is there another?
There's nothing currently that I see on the calendar. I thought that I would have heard from Scott Coughlin by now, because we're supposed to be splitting up and visiting other cities to present what was talked about at the scale meeting. But I haven't heard anything or seen anything, so.
Yep. MBTA.
No report. We meet next Wednesday.
Okay. I-35.
No report. We meet on April 8th.
Okay. Chamber of Commerce. I don't know if there's anyone interested in speaking for the chamber, but if not, we can just move on.
The latest we had is ribbon cutting. We did that for Shortstop Nutrition, and then crossover martial arts. And then we have a ribbon cutting on Saturday for, Kate, help me, just for kicks.
Just for kicks.
And the sun massage. So we do a ribbon cutting on Saturday for those two businesses.
And I'm guessing by your tone, you were not made aware.
No, I'll follow,
City staff.
I'll follow up with Josh. I'm not sure. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know if the chamber had a concern with me being there at the last one, so
I had asked them to reach out to not only you as the mayor, but to Tom to be able to forward it on to the rest of the council and staff members so that they could show up.
Yeah.
I will
Alright.
double check my inbox, but I don't.
I'll give the chamber president a shout in the morning.
Okay. I believe it's at 11:30 at Just for Kicks on
Yeah.
Saturday. So.
Okay. Discussion by council. Anyone have anything?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Before we go
Motion made.
off the record, Creighton Blue Jays may be national champions by the time we get to our next council meeting. So I just want to put that on the record now after we do that on Sunday. And then whoever we beat the next round, will be the final four. So totally good.
I didn't understand a single word Josh just said. I'm sure it was great.
I will reiterate, I didn't take off my Blue Jay mask. By our meeting next time, the Blue Jays may be national champions after we beat Gonzaga this weekend and we go on to win in the Elite Eight. So
Yeah, good luck with that.
good day.
Also too, Mayor, I will not be at the next two meetings because I'll be out of the state for the next two. So I apologize. I have somebody there in my place if you'd like, but otherwise I won't be able to be there.
We'll miss you.
I was hoping to Zoom in, but now we're back in public, you know, so.
All right. All right, we had a motion to adjourn in a second, right?
I won't be at the next meeting.
Second.
So we had a motion by Kate, second by Bryce.
Tom?
Councilmember Shanky,
Aye.
Councilmember Novak,
Aye.
Councilmember Timmerman,
Aye.
Councilmember Burt,
Aye.
Mayor Julius.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.